The Ghosts of Titan Station. The communication array crackled to life in the depths of Titan Station, buried 3 kilometers beneath the frozen surface of Saturn's largest moon. Commander Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the ice-cold metal wall, feeling the vibrations of the massive generators that kept their hidden city alive. 15 years had passed since the Great Purge. 15 years since the galaxy had tried to erase humanity from existence, and still every morning felt like borrowed time. "Commander, we're receiving multiple signals across all frequencies," reported Lieutenant James Morrison from the communications station. His voice carried the tension that all survivors shared, the constant readiness for flight or fight that had kept them alive this long. "It's not random chatter, ma'am. This is organized, coordinated." Sarah moved away from the wall, her boots clicking against the metal grating of the command center. Titan Station housed nearly 50,000 souls, the largest surviving human settlement that anyone knew about. There were others scattered across the galaxy's forgotten corners, hidden in asteroid fields and dead systems, but they rarely communicated. Communication meant detection, and detection meant death. The main screen flickered to life, showing star maps dotted with red signals. Sarah's blood ran cold. The pattern was unmistakable. Ships were moving through human space, following the old trade routes that had once connected Earth to her colonies. Someone was looking for something, and Sarah had a terrible suspicion she knew what. Analysis. Morrison. "What are we looking at?" 3 distinct fleet signatures, Commander. Xanthari long-range cruisers, Vorkon battle groups, and what appears to be hegemony exploration vessels. They're broadcasting on diplomatic frequencies. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. The Xanthari, Vorkon, and hegemony, the 3 species that had formed the Galactic Cleansing Coalition 15 years ago. The 3 civilizations that had decided humanity was too dangerous to exist, too unpredictable to be allowed among the civilized races of the galaxy. She remembered the broadcasts from Earth's final days, remembered watching the orbital platforms die in silent flashes of light. The aliens had been thorough, efficient, and absolutely merciless. Men, women, children, it hadn't mattered. Humanity was a cancer to be cut out completely. "What are they saying?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew. Morrison adjusted his headset, his face pale in the blue glow of the monitors. "They're requesting peaceful contact with human representatives. They claim they want to establish diplomatic relations and discuss mutual cooperation for galactic prosperity." Sarah laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Around the command center, other officers looked up from their stations. They all recognized that laugh. It was the sound humans made when the universe showed them something particularly absurd. Dr. Elizabeth came to the command center. Sarah spoke into her comm unit. "Priority Alpha." While they waited, Sarah activated the holographic display in the center of the room. The 3-dimensional star map showed the current positions of the alien fleets. 67 ships total, spread across a dozen systems. Not enough for another cleansing operation, but more than enough to handle any human settlements they might find. Dr. Kane arrived within minutes, her gray hair pulled back in the severe bun she'd worn since becoming the station's chief historian and psychological warfare specialist. Before the Purge, she had been a xenopsychologist, studying alien behavior patterns and cultural motivations. Now she applied that knowledge to keeping humans alive. "Elizabeth, our old friends are back," Sarah said, gesturing to the display. "They'd want to talk." Dr. Kane studied the fleet positions, her expression growing darker with each passing second. "Reconnaissance pattern," she said finally. "They're not here to talk, Sarah. They're here to hunt." "My thoughts exactly. But why now? Why after 15 years?" "Because they're afraid," Dr. Kane replied. "Think about it. 15 years ago, they had perfect intelligence about human capabilities, human locations, human numbers. They knew exactly what they were dealing with. Now, they have no idea how many of us survived, where we are, or what we've become." Sarah nodded slowly. The doctor was right. The aliens had tried to commit genocide, but genocides only worked if you killed everyone. Leave survivors, and those survivors became something else entirely. They became ghosts with grievances, shadows with weapons, and memories that never faded. "Morrison, patch me through to the council," Sarah ordered. "All department heads, emergency session in conference room Alpha." 30 minutes later, Sarah stood before the 12 members of Titan Station's governing council. Each person represented a different aspect of their hidden civilization: military, engineering, medicine, agriculture, education, and manufacturing. They were the best of what remained of humanity, and Sarah could see in their eyes the same cold calculation that had kept them alive this long. "The situation is simple," Sarah began, activating the holographic display. "Our killers have returned, claiming they want peace. The question is, how do we respond?" Chief Engineer Marcus Torres spoke first. "We could relocate, pack up the essential systems, and move the population to Delta Station in the Kuiper Belt. It would take 6 months, but we could disappear again." "Running worked for 15 years, agreed Dr. Susan Walsh, the chief medical officer. "No reason it can't work for 15 more." Sarah shook her hand. "No, they're not here by accident. Somehow, they've detected signs of human activity. If we run now, they'll know for certain that we exist, and they'll keep looking until they find us all." Colonel David Park, the station's military commander, leaned forward in his chair. "Then we fight. We've had 15 years to prepare for this moment. Our weapons are better, our ships are faster, and we have something they don't." "Which is?" asked Dr. Kane. "We have nothing left to lose," Colonel Park replied. "They do." Sarah walked to the window that looked out over the station's main colony section. 15,000 people lived in the residential areas below, working, learning, raising children who had never seen Earth's blue sky. They were building something new in the darkness, something that the galaxy had tried to destroy. "There's another option," Sarah said quietly. "We talk to them." The room erupted in protests, but Sarah raised her hand for silence. "Not because we trust them, not because we forgive them, but because we need to know what they know. How did they find traces of us? How many other colonies have they detected? What exactly are they planning?" Dr. Kane nodded slowly. "Information warfare. Let them think they're in control while we gather intelligence." "Exactly. Colonel Park, how long would it take to prepare our ships for combat operations?" "They're already prepared, Commander. They have been for 5 years." Sarah smiled. Another advantage the aliens didn't know about. They expected to find desperate refugees hiding in the dark. Instead, they would find an enemy that had spent 15 years learning, growing, and preparing for exactly this moment. "Morrison, send a response to the alien fleets. Tell them that representatives of the human colonial remnant are willing to meet for preliminary discussions. Suggest a neutral location, somewhere that gives us tactical advantages." "Yes, ma'am. Where should I suggest?" Sarah studied the star map, looking for the perfect location. Somewhere isolated enough to prevent surprise attacks, but close enough to major systems that the aliens would feel confident. Her eyes settled on a red dwarf system with 3 dead planets and an extensive asteroid field. "The Erebus system. Tell them we'll meet at the old mining station in 3 days." As her officers dispersed to carry out their orders, Sarah remained in the conference room with Dr. Kane and Colonel Park. The 3 of them represented the heart of human survival: leadership, understanding, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary. "This is dangerous, Sarah," Dr. Kane said. "If they're setting a trap, then we spring it on our terms," Sarah replied. 15 years ago, they caught us by surprise. They won't get that chance again." Colonel Park activated a secure channel on his communicator. "Ghost Fleet, this is Titan Command. Begin Operation Resurrection. All units to battle stations. Across the solar system, in hidden bases and camouflaged stations, the survivors of humanity began to move. Ships that had been concealed for 15 years powered up their engines. Weapons that had been secretly manufactured in asteroid mining facilities came online, and in the deepest bunkers of a dozen worlds, soldiers who had been training for this moment their entire lives checked their equipment one final time. The aliens wanted to talk about peace. They would get their conversation, but they would also get a reminder of why they had tried to exterminate humanity in the first place. Some species were too dangerous to ignore, too resilient to kill easily, and too angry to forgive. The galaxy was about to relearn that humans were all three. When predators become prey, the Erebus system looked exactly as it had 15 years ago, a forgotten corner of space where mining companies had once extracted rare metals from floating rocks. The abandoned station drifted silently among the asteroids, its hull scarred by micrometeorite impacts and solar radiation. To the casual observer, it appeared to be just another piece of space debris. Commander Sarah Chen watched from the bridge of the stealth cruiser Retribution as the alien delegation approached. 3 ships, just as expected. A Xanthari diplomatic vessel with its characteristic curved hull, a blocky Vorkon destroyer that served as escort, and a sleek hegemony science ship bristling with sensor arrays. "They're running deep scans on everything," reported Chief Technology Officer Lisa Park from her station. "Trying to map the asteroid field and identify any hidden threats." "Let them look," Sarah replied calmly. "They won't find anything we don't want them to find." The past 3 days had been a blur of preparation. Human ships had moved into position throughout the system, using technology developed over 15 years of hiding to remain invisible to alien sensors. Stealth fields, sensor scramblers, and weapons platforms disguised as asteroids created a web of death that the aliens couldn't detect. But more importantly, Sarah had spent those 3 days reviewing everything humanity had learned about their former executioners. The Xanthari were proud, considering themselves the natural leaders of galactic civilization. The Vorkon were militaristic, respecting only strength and viewing diplomacy as weakness. The hegemony were cold logicians who made decisions based purely on mathematical calculations of benefit and risk. All 3 species had one thing in common. They believed they were superior to humans. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Janet Morrison. "The aliens are requesting permission to dock with the station." "Granted. And patch me through to all Ghost Fleet units. I want everyone ready." Sarah transported to the abandoned mining station with a small security detail. The docking bay still had atmosphere, maintained by automated systems that had been running for decades. As the alien shuttle landed, Sarah checked her personal weapons one final time. A plasma pistol at her hip, a ceramic knife in her boot, and a neural disruptor disguised as a medical scanner. The shuttle door opened, and Sarah got her first close look at the species that had tried to murder her civilization. Ambassador Thexhai of the Xanthari emerged first, his tall humanoid form draped in ceremonial robes that denoted his high status. His species had evolved from pack hunters, and Sarah could see the predator instincts in his yellow eyes as he scanned the docking bay for threats. Commander Bracton of the Vorkon followed, his heavily armored form moving with military precision. The Vorkon were descended from herbivores, but they had developed a warrior culture to compensate for their evolutionary disadvantage. They fought with the desperate ferocity of prey animals that had learned to kill. Finally, Scholar Prime Nexus 9 of the Hegemony glided forward on its anti-gravity platform. The Hegemony were artificial intelligences that had replaced their biological creators centuries ago. They viewed organic life as inefficient, chaotic, and ultimately expendable. "Commander Chen." Ambassador Thexhai spoke, his translator rendering his words in perfect English. "We are honored by this opportunity to establish peaceful relations between our peoples." Sarah looked at each of them in turn, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably long. When she finally spoke, her voice was completely flat, devoid of any emotion. 15 years ago, your peoples declared humanity a threat to galactic stability. You attacked our worlds without warning, murdered our civilians, and tried to erase us from existence. Now you come here talking about peace. Explain." Commander Bracton stepped forward, his massive frame intimidating even in the low gravity. The past is the past, human. We are here to discuss the future. The past is never past when it involves genocide, Sarah replied. But I'm listening. What changed? Scholar Prime Nexus 9's artificial voice filled the docking bay. Our calculations indicate that continued conflict with remaining human populations would be inefficient. The resources required to locate and eliminate all surviving colonies exceed the potential threat you represent. Sarah smiled, and all three aliens took an unconscious step backward. There was something predatory in that expression, something that triggered instincts millions of years old. So you're not here to make peace, Sarah said. You're here because hunting us became too expensive. We prefer to think of it as evolved thinking. Ambassador Thexai said quickly. The galaxy is large enough for all civilized species to coexist. Civilized species, Sarah repeated. Interesting choice of words. Tell me, Ambassador, what makes a species civilized? Is it the ability to create art? To explore the unknown? To care for their young? Sarah's voice hardened. Or is it the willingness to commit genocide when someone threatens your comfortable position at the top of the food chain? The tension in the docking bay was thick enough to cut. Sarah could see the aliens growing increasingly uncomfortable, but she wasn't finished. I have a confession, Sarah continued. We haven't been entirely honest with you. When you asked for this meeting, we agreed because we wanted information. We wanted to know how many of our settlements you've detected, what your current military capabilities are, and whether you've learned anything useful from studying human wreckage over the past 15 years. Commander Bracton's hand moved toward his weapon, but Sarah held up a finger. I wouldn't. You're currently surrounded by approximately 200 armed humans, and this entire station is rigged with explosives. But more importantly, you're going to want to hear what I have to say next. She activated a holographic projector, and suddenly the docking bay was filled with images. Star maps showing human colonies across dozens of systems, fleet positions with hundreds of human ships, manufacturing facilities producing weapons and supplies, population centers with millions of survivors. 15 years ago, you thought you killed humanity, Sarah said. You were wrong. You scattered us, hardened us, and gave us a shared purpose that transcends anything we had before. You created something much more dangerous than the chaotic, divided species you tried to exterminate. The holographic display changed, showing weapons tests and ship specifications, plasma cannons that could punch through alien shields, stealth technology that made human ships invisible, and kinetic weapons that could crack planets. We've spent 15 years studying you, Sarah continued, learning your weaknesses, analyzing your tactics, and preparing for the day you came back. Because we knew you would come back. Predators always return to hunting grounds where they found prey before. Scholar Prime Nexus 9 processed the information with mechanical precision. Your survival rates and technological advancement exceed all calculated parameters. This data suggests we made an error in threat assessment. Yes, you did, Sarah agreed. You assumed that genocide was a permanent solution. But genocide only works if you kill everyone. Miss a few, and those survivors become something else entirely. They become ghosts with very long memories. She touched her communicator, and suddenly the space around the mining station filled with ships. Human vessels decloaked from every direction, their weapons trained on the alien delegation's ships. The asteroid field itself revealed hidden weapons platforms and defense stations. This is what you missed 15 years ago, Sarah said. Humans don't just fight wars. We end them. We study our enemies until we understand them completely. And then we use that understanding to destroy them so thoroughly that they never threaten us again. Ambassador Thexai tried to maintain his diplomatic composure, but Sarah could see the fear in his eyes. Commander Chen, surely we can reach an understanding. The galaxy need not suffer another war. You're absolutely right, Sarah replied. The galaxy will not suffer another war, because this won't be a war. Wars happen between equals. This will be an extermination. The alien ships tried to flee, but human vessels were faster, more maneuverable, and had been positioned to cut off every escape route. The Vorkon destroyer managed to fire a few shots before its engines were disabled. The Xanthari diplomatic vessel sent out desperate calls for reinforcement that would never come. The Hegemony science ship simply shut down, its AI recognizing the mathematical impossibility of survival. "You wanted to know what happened to humanity," Sarah said to the three aliens as they watched their ships being systematically destroyed. "We became what you feared we were. We became apex predators with the intelligence to hold grudges and the patience to wait for the perfect moment to strike." She activated another display, this one showing real-time images from across the galaxy. Human fleets were simultaneously attacking Xanthari colonies, Vorkon military bases, and Hegemony research stations. 15 years of careful preparation were paying off as the species that had tried to commit genocide found themselves on the receiving end of their own medicine. "Stop this madness," Commander Bracton demanded. "We came here in peace." "No," Sarah replied coldly. "You came here because you were afraid. You realized that somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, humanity was still alive, still growing, still remembering. You wanted to find us and finish what you started, but you were too cowardly to admit it. So you wrapped your hunting expedition in diplomatic language and hoped we would be stupid enough to believe it." The images from the galactic attacks continued to stream in. Human forces were methodically dismantling the infrastructure of three civilizations, using the same thorough approach the aliens had employed against Earth. Military installations were destroyed first, then government centers, then industrial facilities. "Please," Ambassador Thexhai said, and for the first time his translator conveyed genuine desperation. "Our peoples can coexist. We can make amends for past mistakes." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, considering his words. Then she shook her head. "You had your chance to coexist 15 years ago. You chose genocide instead. Now you get to experience what you put us through, with one important difference." "What difference?" Scholar Prime Nexus 9 asked. "We're better at it than you were," Sarah replied. "When humans commit genocide, we don't leave survivors to come back for revenge." The last alien ship died in a silent flash of light, and Sarah Chen stood alone in the docking bay of an abandoned mining station, watching the galaxy burn. Around her, the ghosts of 12 billion dead humans whispered their approval. Humanity had learned the most important lesson the universe could teach. Sometimes the only way to ensure peace is to become something so terrifying that no one dares to disturb it. The galaxy wanted peace. Now it would have it, under human terms, enforced by human weapons, and maintained by human vigilance. The age of human dominance had begun.